I had just finished my freshman year, and I felt like I had a pretty good freshman year. I was ranked. It was weird. I was ranked in the country and had no offers. And we had a guy on the team, Aiden Ryan. He's a good friend of mine. He plays defensive back at William and Mary. But at the time, he was getting like offers left and right. And I remember one night, like before I even had an understanding of the gospel and having a relationship with Jesus, I remember that day I got on my knees and I prayed. And looking back on it now, it was coming from a sense of pride where I felt like I deserved something. But God answered that prayer. And the next day, my high school coach reached out to me and said, call this coach from Virginia Tech. And that was my first offer the very next day.
What?
Yeah, no, it was
the next day.
The very next.
And people are going to say that God is not real.
Exactly.
Folks, thankful for the opportunity to sit here just with an outstanding young man, linebacker at Michigan State. But I got to tell you, Jordan Hall is a lot more than a man of the greatest sport on earth, football. Incredible family story, incredible upbringing. The youngest of six, a young man of strong faith. And we were just talking about one of our dear mutual friends, Nathan Carter, who, again, another Michigan State player doing fantastic things down in Atlanta with the Falcons. Jordan, man, it's a gift to have you in the studio today.
Thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here.
So he walks in and, look, I don't know. I mean, I look at Instagram every once in a while. I'm blessed that Chrissy runs the Instagram account, but I looked at his Instagram and I was like, man, this guy's like, he's a presence. I'm like, yeah, that's scary. I mean, when you're running that kind of speed on the field and you are as much of a specimen as you are, I could see why September 7th, Big Ten Defensive Player of the Week. I mean, what a game, 42-40. That was double overtime win over Boston College, right?
Yeah, I mean, that was a huge win for the program. We went into that game saying, this is going to be a fourth quarter game, and it may maybe even take 5. And we knew that before going into it, and I just tried to, play my part the best I could. But that was a huge win for the program, for the fans, and for us as a team.
What was different that day for you in terms of just the level of play? Was there anything that was different?
I don't think so. I try to approach each game the same, and it starts with Monday preparation. I just felt like I had a really good sense for the keys that game, and just try to focus on flying around, getting to the ball. That was like our first big opponent of the year, not conference play, but Boston College is a great team, and so that was kind of my first game, kind of stepping into that. These are legit opponents that we're facing.
Well, and I, we're going to obviously come back and talk about your time at Michigan State and the journey from IMG Academy to Michigan State. We love having you here in the great state of Michigan. But let's go back to your childhood. I mean, I enjoyed hearing a little bit before we got started today about, you were born in Norfolk, Virginia. You are the youngest of 6. Talk about your early childhood years and maybe share a story or two that really sets the tone for who you are today.
So I was born in Norfolk, Virginia, and on a naval base. My dad, he served in the Navy for 22 years, retired now. He inspects submarines now, which is kind of crazy because he's like 6'5", 270, so his big self in a small submarine. But I was born there. Unfortunately, my parents split when I was 1, and so we moved back to Spotsylvania, and that's where I grew up there all the way up until high school. But just coming from that Navy background, those trips to my dad's, they were something because he's all leadership oriented and authority oriented. And so he was always hard. Like we had to make the bed before we did anything, and we had to make sure the house was clean before we did anything. And I can remember a time where like he came home early from work, and we were outside playing, and he he went outside fresh off of work. He was working long days, and he grabbed all of us from outside, and we cleaned the whole house spotless. And that took until dinner time. And then dinner, he loves okra. That's like his favorite. I don't know, is that a vegetable? Okra? I think it's a vegetable. But he loves those. It is. And we all hated them. We hated it. And I think he knew that we hated it, and he was mad that the house wasn't clean. And so for dinner, I'm like, I can't eat this. Like, I'm going to throw up. Yeah. And I sat there until 1 a.m. until I ate my okra. And I didn't even eat it. My mom got out of bed and came downstairs and got me and was like, you can go to bed now. Because I sat there probably until 1 o'clock in the morning because I didn't eat it. And everybody else went to bed. But
oh, my Lord.
Yeah, that's just, he's a great dad, coming from that background of 22 years in the Navy is a long commitment and a long time of, having to deal with leadership, him being a leader himself. But yeah, so we moved back to Spotsylvania. That's where my grandma, we call her M2. She's been a major part in my life and has supported me and my mom in times where, we had to go and live with her because we couldn't afford to live on our own. And that was really all the way up until high school. So my parents split. My dad came into the marriage with his own 3 kids. Oh, okay. And then my mom has 2 other kids, my older sister and my older brother. So when they split, they kind of split the kids up that way, 3 and 3. And so yeah, things were it was a little tough living with my grandma and my mom. My mom, she has always worked 2 jobs. And being a dad, how hard it can be sometimes to support your child and want to be able to give them all the necessities that they need. But I'm so blessed to have a mother who sacrificed so much. Like I said, she worked 2 jobs. To this day, she's still working 2 jobs. But she's instilled so much courage into me. So much wisdom into me. I've had a bunch of coaches, but she's probably the best coach that I've ever had.
I love that.
Yeah.
I've actually, we've done, I don't know, we've probably had over 100 guys in the game of football on the show. I've never heard someone say that.
Yeah.
That's a beautiful statement.
Yeah. She's just an amazing woman, and she's taught me things about, how to be a son, and how to be a man, and how to be later on a dad, from a woman's perspective, which I think is important. Especially with my dad not being as prevalent, as some parents who aren't split. She stepped up in that way, and I was hard headed. I was boneheaded for a while. I got. Not too many people notice. I'm a good kid now, but I was horrible growing up. I got kicked out of every elementary school.
Now Jordan is a good young man.
Trust me, I before Jesus, I was a different person. I got kicked out of every elementary school. I wasn't allowed back into public schools until 8th grade. It was crazy, but that took a toll on my mom because she was always having to call out and leave work. But that's where my uncle stepped up. And
yeah, I want you to talk about that, right? Because we agreed one of the topics that we wanted to unpack today was mentorship and guidance, right? I know how important your faith is today. I know how important leadership. And not leadership in words, but leadership in behaviors and actions, right?
Right.
Know how important that is. So unpack that a little bit in terms of, the mentorship that you got from your uncle.
Yeah. So, like I said, I was getting kicked out of school daily. And, my mom, she was working 2 jobs, so it was hard for her. to be able to leave work and come pick me up from school. But one day we were over at my first cousin's house, and I'd never met my uncle up until that day. Well, honestly, I didn't even meet him that day. My cousin I was like 6 years old, probably the biggest 6-year-old he'd ever seen. It was like, you should really try football. And my mom was like, no, he's not doing that. But I was like, I want to try it. So he called my uncle and was like, yo, we got this sixth grader. He needs to play football. He's too big to be sitting in the house playing video games all day. And so my uncle connected with my mom, and she was like, no, he's not doing it. And then he finally convinced her. She was like, okay, but we have to wrap him in bubble wrap. Like, that's the only way I'll allow him to go out there.
Wrap him in bubble wrap.
That was the only way.
And you were like the biggest kid on the field.
Exactly. I was making kids cry, and she was like, no, he needs to be wrapped in bubble wrap. And I had all these elbow pads, and I'm like, I don't need any of that stuff. But, I mean, since I was 6 years old, my uncle has been such a great mentor in my life, and just teaching me different things that I didn't even think I would need, and just showing me the ropes of right decisions to make, whether that's financially or best decisions to make of where I'm going to college, what I should be studying, what I should be investing in. He's played such a pivotal role since I was 6 years old, and we've had numerous of just deep talks. Like, I know if there's any issues coming up, he's the first person that I go to, and he's poured so much into me.
Let's talk a little bit about that transition to IMG Academy, right? Share with our listeners a little bit about where you were playing high school football at the time that this became an opportunity, and who was a part of that decision-making process for you then?
Yeah, so I grew up Spotsylvania, went to James Monroe High School in Fredericksburg. It's a pretty small city, has one elementary school, one middle school, one high school. So I played my freshman year of high school there, and kind of like a introduction into my faith a little bit. I had just finished my freshman year, and I felt like I had a pretty good freshman year. I was ranked. It was weird. I was ranked in the country and had no offers. And we had a guy on the team, Aiden Ryan. He's a good friend of mine. He plays defensive back at William & Mary. But at the time, he was getting, like, offers left and right. And I remember one night, like, before I even had an understanding of the gospel and having a relationship with Jesus, I remember that day I got on my knees and I prayed. And looking back on it now, it was coming from a sense of pride where I felt like I deserved something. But God answered that prayer. And the next day, my high school coach reached out to me and said, call this coach from Virginia Tech. And that was my first offer the very next day.
What?
Yeah, no, it was
the next day.
The very next.
And people are going to say that God is not real.
Exactly. I mean, I don't know how you can believe that. The very next day,
wow,
my prayer was answered. And it just shows, the mercy of, like, I didn't even have a relationship with Jesus. And I just know my grandma always poured, like, my grandma was the type, after dinner, we're going to have a Bible study with the siblings. I'm like, I want to go back to doing whatever I was doing. But so I had a background, but, I had no relationship or no true intimacy with Jesus at all. But it just shows the mercy of God. And how he's a God that listens to us and he cares about things that we care about. But yeah, he answered that prayer for me. And it was kind of just a string. I think I had got 6 offers back to back to back.
And this is your freshman year?
My freshman, right after my
right
freshman
after the
year.
conclusion of that, yeah.
Yeah, probably like January, maybe February, going into my sophomore year. And yeah, I got probably a string of 6 offers back to back within the next 2 or 3 months. Then things kind of slowed down a little bit. But I was starting to get the recognition from other schools, different camps and stuff. And then the world kind of shut down with COVID. And the Fredericksburg School, like I said, it's the one high school. And so they're like, well, we're not sure if we're going to have a season this year. And so I went to this camp and had no idea who was going to be there. I was invited to it. I wasn't even invited to the camp per se. But it was like a photographer, videographer that was shooting at the camp. Was like, hey, I think you should really come throw on our gear and stuff and do the camp. And I was like, sure. And I guess I stood out in the camp, and a guy who knew Don Zalotti, who runs like the football operations at IMG, he had reached out to him, was like, yeah, maybe we should give this guy a look. And at the time, they had just revamped their whole staff.
Yeah.
And Pepper Johnson, I don't know if you're familiar with him.
I know who he is.
Yeah, he's also another great mentor in my life in high school. But he had just got the linebacker job there and defensive coordinator job there. And, they looked at my film, and he told me later on the line, he was like, I knew when I watched your film, I'm like, this is my guy. This is who I need to go get. So after the camp, I got a DM right after, like on the way back from the camp, from George Hegeman. He played O-line with the Cowboys, back with Dion, and now he's working back with Dion at Colorado. But I got a DM from him and was like, you want to come to IMG? And I thought it was like a joke. And I'm like, what do you mean? Like, I've never heard of this guy before. You don't just ask somebody, like, do you want to go to IMG through a Twitter DM? But yeah, he reached out to me, and I said, I'll come give it a visit. We drove down there. My family drives every single game.
Who was in the car?
It was my mom, my uncle, and my grandma.
Let's go.
Yeah, I mean, they've been every part of my life. Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. And we drove down there. We loved it.
Who is not impressed by that campus?
I mean, you cannot be.
Seriously.
And they have everything.
Forget about it. Yeah. I'm a 47-year-old man, and I'm impressed.
I mean, it's like Disney World for athletes.
Man.
Anything you need, they got. Yeah. But 2 weeks later, I was enrolled there.
That's awesome.
That was it, yeah.
That's awesome. So of the three people in the car, your grandmother, your mother, and your uncle, who was most in favor and who was least in favor?
Most in favor, uncle, for sure.
Yeah,
because he's like, you can't pass up this opportunity. Like, you'd be crazy not to.
I want to meet your uncle.
Yeah, he's a great dude. And then my mom, obviously, she's, you're my baby. I'm not gonna send you 14 hours away from home at 16 years old.
Yeah. Unless you wear bubble wrap.
Exactly. And I think that conversation probably resurfaced, and my uncle was like, no, trust me, he'll be all right. He won't need it. But she came around. Yeah.
That's so good. Let's focus in a little bit here. IMG. What was like the most meaningful leadership lesson that's still sitting in your mind today from those couple years at IMG, where you're like, man, that was an impactful moment in my life that I'm gonna take forward?
It kind of showed me leadership has to be earned. And
say more about that.
Yeah. So like my sophomore year, I was there for 2 weeks leading up until the first game, and I was elected captain. Right. And I'm like, okay, because at the time I'm a sophomore linebacker. I've been here for 2 weeks, and there's already a senior linebacker in front of me. So I'm like, Bobby Acosta was the head coach at the time, and he sat me down in his office, and he was like, we were going to, give this honor to another linebacker, but he's having foot surgery soon. He'll be back later in the season. But, he's not going to have that team presence. And so we want to, vote you as captain or elect you as captain. And in my mind, I'm like, I'm honored, obviously. But I felt like I didn't have any more presence than the guy who wasn't playing. These guys have been here for months training and working out. Fortunately, I've been blessed with this skill set to kind of adapt and be a leader. And I felt like I did have some presence, but I mean, I didn't know the guys as much as I did my junior and senior year. So it was hard. It's hard to connect when you're not living with these guys for that long, and you're kind of thrown into this role. But as I've gone through my junior year, my senior year of high school, and even into college. You can see a drastic difference in being a leader when that role is given to you, rather than when you earn that role.
Well, I know that I know that mindset and growth and investing in yourself is important and it's a priority to you. Talk about the types of goals that you were setting for yourself during your time at IMG, and how are you auditing your circle, right? We talk about that a lot on the show. Everyone who's hyper successful, high performers are typically auditing their circles at a really high level and only allowing people in that share a similar vision and obsession for greatness. How are you setting goals and how are you auditing your circle during your time at IMG?
Yeah, so my goal, from the start of high school when I played football, when I figured I had a legitimate shot, was let's just get to college. Let's get an offer to be able to play Division I college for free. Once I achieved that goal, it was okay. Let me be the best linebacker that I can be first. I think a lot of people, they jump the gun on that and they try to be the best at their position in the country. And there's steps to do that. And granted, some people are blessed enough to be able just to be just the best in the country. But it takes some time and development, and it starts with being the best person that you can be every day, and achieving that daily will get you to being that person in the country. And so it started at being the best person that I could be every day. I came to IMG probably 6 foot, 250. Yeah, I was in 8th grade.
What?
I was huge. I was
6 foot 250.
I was up there. My freshman year of high school, I was probably 5'11", 280, 270. Yeah. I played O-line and D-line in 8th grade. Yeah. I was a big dude. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. That was. That's I think I have good character. I got bullied a lot. In 7th and 8th grade. But I grew out of that phase. But yeah, that was a crazy time. But yeah, it started with working on myself and being the best person I can be, getting my body to a place where I felt comfortable to play with, at the time, the best team in the country. And I felt like when I got there, I was not able to play with the best team in the country.
Yeah.
But I worked every day. Figured out things that I need to work on and improve on those things every day. Until I know I wasn't the best linebacker in the country, but I was better than when I got there and achieved accolades while I was there.
What dimension of the game were you working the hardest on to improve during your time at IMG? What dimension of your game? And what are some of the simple things? A lot of our listeners are high school and college student athletes. What are some of the simple things you did consistently to improve that dimension or aspect of your game?
Yeah, a big portion of it is just understanding football. Not, you want to understand your playbook and your scheme, but just understand, what offenses like to think, or if you're an offensive player, what defenses like to think. And I was fortunate enough to be under the teachings of Pepper Johnson, who played several years in the NFL, who coached under Bill Belichick. Yeah. And so, there were days where me and him would sit up in the room and watch football and talk football, and get a better understanding of, what offenses like to do in certain situations. And that was probably the biggest dimension that I grew was just watching football and understanding football, which elevated me and accelerated me going into college. Yeah, that was probably the biggest improvement that I saw, was just understanding football. I probably wouldn't say this, but I've been told from people at IMG, at that time I was probably one of the smartest players on the field, and I think that came with the hours that I spent with Coach Pep, understanding football and growing and learning in that aspect.
Other than Coach Johnson, was there another person who had a significant impact on you as a mentor or leader on campus?
Yeah. Outside of football, so
Yeah,
IMG is a
please.
boarding school.
Yeah.
So we had house parents
Yeah.
in the dorms, and there were three guys that now are like my. It was kind of like father son then, but now it's like those are my guys. We're not that spaced out in age. I think the oldest is like 30.
Right.
But at the time, they were taking care of us and looking after us. Ant and Josh. And I mean, those were like my guys that I would sit with and connect with. And they're not too far off in age, like I said, so they were able to relate to me and kind of pour into me. And the guys I still keep up with to this day. I know they try to come to a game every year. Last year they made it out to the Maryland game, which was really nice seeing them.
Yeah.
But yeah, just great dudes who poured into me, and was somebody that I could relate to because the age gap, I guess, being so small. Yeah.
I love that. Let's talk a little bit about the transition from IMG to Michigan State. What would you say? If anything at all? What would you say has been your biggest adjustment from when you were playing at the high school level to now playing big time college football?
I mean, competition, and when we're talking about just play in general.
Yeah,
I mean,
say more about that.
Yeah, like every week you're playing a worthy opponent in college football, especially in the Big Ten. You got some out of conference games here and there, but competition, even with those out of conference games, are still there. We have a joke, but I mean it's truthful. Maybe when we're playing a lesser opponent, where we say those guys are on scholarship too. Like they got to earn their scholarship as well. There's rarely a time you have a pushover where there's no fight back.
Yeah.
You see some scores are like 70-3 or I mean half of the time those games are close until halftime or the second quarter, and you're looking at the score at halftime and it's like, well, it's 10-3 versus FCS school versus Georgia. But competition is always there, and there's always going to be pushback. But outside of actually playing, just getting adjusted to schedule and being independent in that. And IMG helped a lot in that, where the schedules are very similar to college, where they prepare you to be in that scene, to be able to be independent, go to class on your own, work out, get to workouts and meetings and practice on time. And utilizing your free time in the best way. As a college student, you have a lot of free time. Even as an athlete, it's more free time than you think.
Yeah.
But it doesn't get looked. If you use it the right way, it doesn't get looked at as free time. If you're using that free time to watch film or to maybe stretch a little bit. What I've been spending my time with recently is just connecting with guys. My free time. We have two D linemen, Grady Kelly and Quindarius Dunnigan, who they help me lead our Bible studies through AIA. But it's spending time connecting with those guys, building our relationship so that we can pour into other people, which we've seen so much growth and faith on the team. Just last night at church, we had an Edge give his life to Christ. I mean, that was such a special moment that we were able to be there and witness that. But it's just spending time connecting people, which helps on the field, having the trust in people, one another. I know with Grady and Q, I know they can hold those double teams for me because I know when we have a hobby of doing escape rooms. So I know if I can trust them to get us out the escape room, I can trust them to hold those double teams for me. But it's all in how you use free time and adjusting to that schedule for sure.
What would you say has been the challenge or opportunity that has surprised you the most playing at the college level?
Surprised me. I guess just the energy of places that you're visiting, or I mean even Spartan Stadium. I mean it gets rowdy in there, but it's not anything that you can prepare yourself for. Like in high school, I mean, depending on where you come from, the biggest crowd you maybe play in front of is maybe 5,000-10,000 max. Unless you're one of these Texas schools, we're spending $1 million on stadiums. But even me being an IMG, I think the biggest crowd I ever played in front of was 15,000 when we played Duncanville my sophomore
Okay.
year.
Yeah.
But there's nothing that can prepare you to going into the horseshoe, and you're up against Marvin Harrison
Yeah.
as a 18-year-old freshman, and I forget what they were ranked at the time. But there's nothing that can prepare you for that environment. But it's something that you just got to learn to grow with, and
Yeah.
learn to communicate with your people with. I mean, it's tough, but it takes time to get used to.
What would you say is some of the advice that you wish you had received while you were playing in high school that might have prepared you, not better, but prepared you differently for this season of your life playing at Michigan State?
Honestly, just continue to keep your head down, keep working, and grow your relationship with Jesus.
Yeah, talk about that. I want you to.
Yeah, I mean, in high school, I did not have a relationship at all. I would go. We had team Bible studies and stuff the night before games. I'm like, oh yeah, that's perfect. Like, this is exactly what I need to have the best game of my life tomorrow. And
I'm up right now.
right, and little did I know. I mean, that's the total opposite of what a relationship with Jesus is, and that's something that I depended on all the way up until the end of my freshman year of college. And I thought, going through, I don't know if you're familiar with AIA. I don't know if
Yes.
Nate brought it up when he
Yes.
was here. But I was going to AIA and going to church, and I thought, I'm good. Like I know Jesus, and I'm gonna pray before these games, so I play the best that I can be, and it worked out because I was playing well my freshman year. But when you identify with being a football player and performing, and you don't identify as being a child of God who is beautifully and wonderfully made, when things are going good, things are going good, and you're thinking that there's nothing wrong. But as soon as football or performing or being a dad or being a parent or whatever that you are idolizing at that time, whenever those things crumble, you crumble with it. And that showed up my freshman year, after my freshman year, when our whole coaching staff got fired and we brought in a whole new coaching staff. I had a whole new linebacker coach. And going into my sophomore year, I was growing, but in terms of where I'm at now in my faith, I'm reflecting back, and like I still was nowhere near the understanding of what it meant to be saved and what it meant to be free. And so we got a whole new coaching staff came in, and they brought in Jordan Turner, which at the time I hated because I'm like, I'm a freshman All-American, and you're gonna bring in another linebacker in front of me, and I was prideful. I was prideful in that. But so I sat last year, and that was really a tough time for me because all the way up until I was 6 years old. Going back to when I was 6, I'd never not started a game, never not been a leader. And that was the first time since I started playing football where that wasn't the case. And I identified with that, and I identified with being a leader and being a football player and being a great football player. And that wasn't the case last year. And that took a toll on my self-esteem, and it increased my anxieties and my depressions, because that's something that I identified with. But just the growth and the conversations with people that I've had just in the last year of not identifying with that, and that's not who you are, that's not what God says you are, has grown so much. And it showed up last week in USC when I got ejected in the second quarter for a targeting call, which I don't agree with, obviously.
I didn't agree with it.
But I know a year ago I probably would have flipped out on the sideline and lost it. And after I got him, made the tackle, I felt like the ball kind of came loose a little bit, and so we're fighting with each other with the ball. And I get off the pile and I hear the referee go, they're going to review it. I'm like, oh, great. They're reviewing it to see if we got the ball back or not. We're going to get it, obviously. And then as I'm like getting the adjustments and stuff, I hear somebody come up behind me and go, they're checking you for targeting, right? And I was like, no way. And I look up at the Jumbotron, and sure as day, they're playing in slow motion, me hitting this dude in the head. And I knew when I saw the video, I'm like, yeah, that looks bad.
Yes.
I don't agree with it, but it does look bad. And if you look at the rules of targeting, it does fit that description. But there's some other things that go into that of intent and things which I think weren't looked at. But as soon as I heard that, I dropped down on my knees and started praying. I said, God, let your will be done. And if that is to go back into this game and play, I'll be pleased and content. And if it's to sit out, I won't be as content, but I pray that you give me the strength to be able to handle it the right way.
Wow.
And I felt like God gave me that strength to do that. I went over to the side. I sat down for a quick second. Then I realized, wait, defense is still on the field. You're still a leader. You're still a captain. So I went up, coached a bit. I mean, they scored the next play, unfortunately. But then the defense came off. I got the adjustments, tried to coach as best I could. Went to the tent, shed a few tears just because I'm emotional, I'm passionate. It's something that I love doing, and I felt like justice wasn't being done. So I let a few tears go in the tent, but I went back on the field and tried to be a leader and a coach as best as I could, and that just speaks to the growth and the pour of Jesus in my life.
That's powerful. And you know what? Watching the game, I mean, no one understood all of this was happening, right?
Yeah.
Not in your mind, not even physically happening. They don't understand what's really happening, right? That was really powerful. Thank you for being vulnerable and sharing that.
For sure, yeah.
What would you say? Well, why don't we stay here on this topic of faith a little bit, because I know this was really important to you and it's important to me. So I'm thankful that you're here and you're willing to be open and vulnerable about it. But we talked about Nathan Carter, and he's a young man that both of us have tremendous love and respect and affection for. Talk about the influence of a servant leader like Nathan on the team. He was such a dominant presence in last year's season, and that was a season where you did sit out. Were there things or conversations that you think took place between you and Nathan, or you and other believers and leaders on your team, that did help you get through that season?
Yeah. To be honest, I was stubborn last year, and just in my sinful nature. And me and Nate have had more conversations after the season, just about our faiths, and but during the season, I was hard headed and I was stuck in my ways, and so my conversations didn't come from him, but another great servant leader that me and Nate both connect with is Philly G, Phil Gillespie, who he's been running AIA at Michigan State for 20 plus. I think this is his 26th or 27th year. And that's a guy who has poured into me so much, and since I've been to college, and like I said, I was stubborn. Nate, Phil, Jonathan Kim, he was in AIA leadership. Another guy, Caleb Coley, he plays defensive back at Eastern Michigan. They would invite me to AIA and these things because they saw the need that I needed in my life. They saw it of how I walked into the building, and it was something that I knew I needed too, but I was too hard-headed and stubborn to realize that I need Jesus in my life. But they were always eager to share the gospel with me and share with me the freedom that they're receiving. And it took me some time to come around and to fully get an understanding of that sense of freedom and what that looks like in my life and what that means in my life. And ever since I've been introduced to that and had an understanding of that, I can't help but to share that with people, to give them the same sense of freedom and the same sense of love that I get from putting my faith in Jesus. But I was telling Philly G last week, he made the trip out to USC for that game, and we were sitting down talking, having a little one-on-one disciple time, and I just thanked him for his persistence in my walk. And I told him, I was like, Phil, I'm gonna be honest with you. You're probably responsible for 90% of the growth that I've had of being a follower of Jesus. And I just have so much love for his persistence and wanting to grow my relationship, and not for any accolade that he wants. He doesn't want, his approach isn't, oh, I'm going to save this guy because for me, so I feel good.
Yeah.
But I'm going to save this guy because I know what Jesus has done in my life, and I want him to experience that. I understand the depths of love that Jesus has for us, and I want him to feel that same love. And he can't find it in football. He can't find it in performance. He can't find it in women. He can't find it in social media, but it's only through Jesus. And I know that, and I want to share that truth.
That's powerful. Thank you for being willing to share about that. Let's focusing in on this season. We're about a third of the way through. What are you looking forward to in the mid and second half of the season? What are you most excited about? What are your teammates most excited about for this season in Michigan State?
Yeah, I mean, I think this bye week came at a crucial time for us as a program.
Yeah.
I mean, we've had a bunch of injuries so far in the first 3 weeks. Some season-ending injuries, and just guys that have been nicked up and going through things for the last few weeks. Against Boston College, I strained my hamstring that game, and I was dealing with that for the next game, and then going into USC. So it's nice to kind of let my body rest and give our bodies rest, get everybody back healthy. So I think a lot of the guys, myself included, are excited about stepping into the next phase of the season, feeling healthy and prepared. We're just excited to win football games, and we know that we have the team to win a lot more football games. We came up short last week in USC, but if it showed us anything about this team, is that no matter the circumstance, we're going to fight back. We were down 21 points at one point in that game coming out of halftime, and we clawed and we fought our way back to make it a one-score game, and I have the utmost faith. I didn't play that game really in the entirety, just the first quarter. In the stretch of 5 plays, I went out with targeting. The linebacker, the linebacker beside me, Wayne Matthews. The next play, Q, the guy I was telling you about, and Nikai Martinez, our safety, almost knocked each other out. They were out for the game, and then the next drive, Wayne, he had to get taken out on a stretcher. But he's doing well and is in good spirits, and he's been introducing himself back into practice. But I think that if we have, our not to shed light on myself, but our key players, especially for our defense, I think we show up a little bit more. And morale is a little bit up. I got emotional. As I'm seeing them take, Wayne is one of my best friends on the team. We spend so much time together, and I see him, limp on the ground. It's an emotional time as a team, and I think if those things don't happen, maybe the outcome of that game is different. But we understand that we're a team that can fight back, and we will fight back, and we're excited to win those games that people don't think that we can.
As we're looking here at the rest of the season, again, is there an opponent that you're really excited to match up against? And if so, why?
Won't mention one, but I think we all know. But, excited for October 25th. We'll keep it at that. Excited for the Indiana game coming up. I know we talked before. My boy Aiden Fisher, he's a great linebacker. We grew up together. I love playing up against him. I think it's fun. We talk mess. It's funny because before every game, whether we're playing each other or not, we always text each other.
Oh, that's awesome.
Make a little joke here and there. I texted him last week and sent a picture of now I'm blanking on the name, but the horse that they sent in to I can't Trojan horse, yeah, Trojan horse. I sent a picture and it was like, let's get it done, or he'll text me and be like, they played Illinois last week, and he was like, what is a Illinois? What are we doing? And but I got a lot.
What a game last week.
Yeah,
they looked impressive.
Yeah, they got a good team down there, and happy for him and the success that he's having. But yeah, I'm always excited to play him. Got a lot of love and respect for him.
That's awesome. Yeah. Looking ahead beyond even football, what are some of the goals that you're setting now for yourself that are going to take you beyond the days at Michigan State and in East Lansing?
Just continuing to grow as a believer and a follower of Jesus, and letting His will be done in my life. I'm hoping, to make it to that next level. But I'm in a great relationship with my girlfriend. She's in town. She dances with the Lions.
Oh,
yeah. So she's right up the road.
Yeah.
But just continuing to prepare to be a good husband and a good father, and just allow God's will to be done in my life, and whatever that looks like. Whether I'm playing 20 years in the league, or if I start working a 9-to-5 corporate job, which I think that's my last resort. But if that's something that God calls me to do, so be it.
9-to-5 corporate job. I like how he described that. He's like, I don't want to be an employee, Jesus. Please help me not be an employee someday.
No, genuinely though, that's probably my worst nightmare, to be honest with you. But whether that's playing or coaching or doing whatever God calls me to do, I just want to be prepared and willing to go wherever He calls me to go.
Well, the cool thing is you got guys like Nathan and Pat, and shout out to Pat. Thanks for helping us make today happen in your life. And I'm sure they can come up with a lot of other things that you could be doing.
I hope so. Help me out, Pat. If it hits the fan tomorrow.
Besides a corporate 9-to-5, Pat, he does not want to end up in that. I don't think Pat's doing that. So he's maybe a good mentor. Success leaves clues.
Yeah.
So maybe understanding what Pat's doing these days is going to be helpful to you.
For sure.
That your days at Michigan State will come to an end.
Yeah.
What are 3 individual words that you want to be remembered as for your presence and your time at Michigan State?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think the first word that comes to mind is loyal. I've in the landscape of college football, it's rare that you see a starter stay at a place for longer than 2 years. But I think I've given a lot to this program, and they've returned the favor to me and have given me a lot.
Yes.
But I've stuck it out through some hard times.
Love that.
I think leader kind of falls into that umbrella.
Like
also, whether that's leading the defense or leading Bible studies or whatever that looks like in terms of stepping out and being a vocal point for the team. I think I've grown in that aspect through my 3 years here, and I've always kind of had a leadership role, whether it was under the accolade of a captain. I feel like I've always kind of had that leadership presence here. And I guess, for lack of better words, just a true Spartan dog.
Yeah.
Like I said, I love this place. I've given so much to this place. I said a quote the other week. When I signed my NLI papers, I said, I'm committing to this program. I'm committing to this place. I bought a house in East Lansing. That's home for me. Yeah, and I want to be remembered as somebody who came in and left an impact on the university, whether it was on the football field, outside in the community. You might know I got my nails painted.
I saw that.
I was at a children's hospital the other day.
Oh.
And Autumn I mean, she's a soldier, and we were in there playing Uno, and that was the price of admission, was to get my nails
Get your
painted.
nails painted by Autumn.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
But that's the kind of presence that I want to leave at that university.
I love that. So, folks, look, we've got a young man here who is way more than football, and I say that humbly, because I think football is the greatest sport on the planet. And it's the hardest sport. It's the greatest teacher in life. It's the greatest sport to teach teamwork. And we've got a young man here who's just had a incredibly successful life playing the greatest sport on earth. But he's so much more than football. And you heard him. He's a loyal person. He's a leader, and he's a man of faith. And I think that those are the things that really, really do describe this young man in front of me, Jordan Hall, who, God willing, is going to have an incredible football story when it's done. And I think that as long as you want to keep playing, I think you're obviously going to keep playing for a long, long time. So we're going to pray for you. Nebraska's the next matchup, right?
Yep, at Nebraska.
That's it. We're going to be thinking about you. I know you're going to have an incredibly successful season. We're here to support. And as I said, folks, Jordan Hall, one of the most talented linebackers in the country today. Thanks for your time.
Thank you for having me.